Hello everyone, my name is Shruti and I'm going to be your host for today for the third episode of our podcast series, an initiative by Alumni Relations team. Today we talk about decoding the marketing strategies of the new age and prevalent Indian brands. And for the same, with us we have from the batch of 2012, Mr. Savio Cerejo. Savio has worked in ITC for around 7 years and for the past 1.5 years, he is working as a general manager marketing at Swiggy. Welcome, Savio.
Hey, thanks, guys. It's my pleasure to spend some time with you.
Great. So let's initially begin with understanding what creates a great brand.
Hey, thanks, Shruti. So, let me give it a shot. So, it's an interesting question. I wish people had the formula for that. So, see, right at the start, you need to really understand your consumers, and your product has to solve a consumer need. Okay, if your product does not solve a specific and a powerful consumer need, your product's going to be a dud and it's just going to be lying on the shelves. Nobody's even going to be bothered to give it a second glance. Okay, you can look at case studies, examples of so many soft drink brands that just launched variants that didn't really serve a purpose and they just withered away, right? So you need to solve a very, very apt, strong consumer need. The next one is you need to have a strong distribution channel. You need to reach your consumers, right? Each product or brand plays a very tiny role in the entire day of a consumer, right? He isn't going to bat an eyelid over bothering how does he fulfill that need or how does he get it if he has better options or equivalent options or easy options available in an easier manner. So you have that being addressed today with your entire retail system. You have the e-commerce channels. You have a lot of direct-to-consumer channels available. But you really need to solve the problem of how do you get this particular product to the consumer, right? You need to sort out your distribution.
Right.
Then you need to be priced competitively, right? The consumer needs to, I'm sure you guys have gone through the term of consumer derived value, right? The CDV. He needs to see value in purchasing that product. He is not going to overpay. He is not going to buy you in case he has another option available at a lower price, where he does not see sufficient value in spending a higher amount on your product. Okay? So you do need to balance off the CDV equation, and you need to be priced competitively. Yeah, I didn't want to state it up front, but if you now hear what I just said, you just play back what I just said. It's exactly the 4 P's of marketing, right? Product, price, place. And now I come to promotion, right? And why I kept that last and I want to take that separately is because today we, as marketers, this is pretty much the one lever that's completely in our hands. It's what we use at a daily level. While the product would be based with R&D, would be based with the operations and the manufacturing teams, and you will have a fair say in it. While your distribution channels would have already been set up, there would have been some legacy systems already in place. There would be some new systems that you're trying to set up. Pricing would be governed by a lot of other variables, including raw materials, including the scale of your operations. But promotion is exactly what you, at a day-to-day level, as brand managers, as marketing managers, would be influencing. That is where your brand will really stand up. So let me take the liberty of asking you guys, what are the brands that you guys admire? So why don't Shruti, Tejas, Sanat, Payal, let me hear it from you guys. What is the one brand that you really admire?
Okay, so in terms of product, HUL, P&G, and in terms of fashion, I think Pantaloons, Westside for me. I mean, you guys also can give your input.
Yes. So when it comes to coming to brands, I've been associated with sports for a long time now.
Okay.
So there's this one particular brand that I'm very well acquainted with, and this brand I believe is really amongst the best, which is Nike. So
Why
Nike
in
for me is,
particular do you like Nike?
well, when you talk about equipments, when you talk about sporting goods and sporting equipments, there's something that is called as feel that you have, that the trust that you have on the brand. When you are a loyal, customer for a particular brand, you have to, you just stick with it, right? So there's something about Nike, that I'm using it from a very, very long time now, and that it is just imbibed in me, and it's Nike for me for all the great reasons.
Got it. Okay. What about Payal?
Me, it would be L'Oreal because I'm a person who would really uh, align myself with makeup. I'm really much into that. And talking about L'Oreal, it comes upon as a very premium kind of a product. And saying that, it also they're a lot into sustainability. So they often are coming up with either business challenges, or their promotions or the advertisements are often regarding sustainability or how they're moving towards sustainability. So this is a brand which I really associate myself with and I look up to. So it would be L'Oreal for me.
Anyone else?
Yeah, so like Payal said, there's one more brand, the Body Shop. So they do tremendous work in sustainability. Like in London and Europe, you can actually go and refill the old cream bottles. You don't have to buy new products. So yeah, that is one cosmetic brand which I really love.
Great answers, guys. Anything else? Anyone else?
Just another brand that I would like to talk about is Cadbury, because like you said, Savio, what makes a brand is, one is the functional benefits that it provides, but the additional step that a brand provides is the emotional connect that we have with them. So that's how we get the loyalty beyond reasoning concept into it. So how Cadbury, more than just the product, they also talk about the different occasions, the different ways that the different things that they do. So every time we see a Cadbury ad, there's something about it that makes us smile. So it's more than just the product; it's the overall story that they talk about. So that's another brand that I would say.
Yeah, I loved hearing the brands you cited. Very popular, very powerful brands. And I like listening to the reasons as well. So when you think back at exactly what you guys said, right? You guys spoke about emotional connect. They just spoke about Nike and, the emotions it raises every time he uses that product. Payal spoke about the need for sustainability, right? Which has nothing to do with the product per se. The product is cosmetics and there is a packaging. But this is a larger emotional concept that the brand is associating with. And this is exactly what I wanted to bring forth, that today consumers are well read, they are knowledgeable, they travel, they understand brands, and they want to see brands having a larger than life purpose.
Yes.
They do not want a
Right.
cosmetic brand to just say this is the best makeup available on the shelf. That is table stakes. That is expected. It wants to know, what does the brand have a point of view? Does it have a voice? Is it ready to stand up? Does it care about the environment? Does it care about sustainability? Does it care about animal testing? All of that. And when you do have brands that establish that point of view, that voice, that is when you will have a legion of fans. You will have brand advocates. Otherwise, you're just going to be a functional brand picked off the shelf with nobody really caring about you. He's not going to go to the next store looking for you. Correct? So that is exactly what I wanted to say today.
Right.
As budding brand managers, when you guys get into orgs and you guys want to set up brands, you will need to set up the first three P's of marketing, but the fourth P, and when you are promoting it and when you are communicating it, do look into the larger than life aspects, the stuff that your brand can associate with, can stand for, and engage with consumers at a much larger, as you yourself said, at an emotional level rather than at a functional level.
Yeah. Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That perfect. That was great. So, since we spoke so much about brands and companies, Savio, I really want to know that since we spoke about brands and companies, I really want to know what different roles are there in the market for a student who has done his MBA in marketing, and which ones should we vie for?
Again, I love the question. I can clearly see where it's coming from. It was something that I used to beat my head about, right, in the earlier days of my MBA, try asking everybody around what else, what life. So when
Right.
when when you're a marketing professional, uh, you would of course know, and as part of having the seniors having done their summers, etc., you would have seen firsthand. So there are people that are involved in sales, um,
Right.
right? And I'm talking of starting roles. I'm not talking of 10 years into your careers, etc. So when you would start as a sales professional. You could start off as a sales professional, and again, there are so many different channels today. There is general trade, there is modern trade, there is the entire e-commerce channel on certain platforms.
Yes.
You could get into brand management. Today, I see a lot of brands that are developing this entire category management role that looks into the entire category. Uh, you could then get into niche roles, wherein you could get into market research, which is more on the other side of the table, wherein you are understanding consumer insights for brands and for companies. You could get into the entire agency role,
Mhm.
wherein you are looking purely at the creative side of things. You are trying to solution creative um, solutions for brands. You could get into media, right? And you could also get into the entire
Correct.
digital / social media side of the marketing world. So there is no dearth of specializations or niches that you can identify with. And each of them is interesting, right? Now, when
Okay.
you ask me, what are the roles that we should vie for, correct?
Right. Right.
So, see, there is the old truth, right, which says, do what makes you happy. And that is, it holds good even today. However, I do know it is easier said than done, right? When you guys do get into placements, there would be 200 other variables. So you'd be dependent on the companies that come in. It would be dependent on the roles that you get, the roles that are open. Uh, it would be dependent on so many variables once you even get into the company, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
So,
Right.
so there is no. Of course, the truth lies that you try to focus on areas that give you a kick, that make you happy. So if it's me, look into media.
Correct.
If it is research, and that is something that you really identify with, then maybe you can look into research and focus only on those companies or those aspects. But I'll tell you something. I
Right.
have learned myself through experience. Some of my mentors have shared with me, and that is a role is exactly what you make out of it. Okay.
Correct. Yeah.
I have landed in a role
Okay.
that didn't exist when I went into ITC cigarettes. And it was something that I completely set up. And today it is one of the best marketing levers that the cigarettes division has. Right. And I have also seen people get into very coveted roles wherein they really didn't achieve as much as the role could, enable them to. So role is completely what you make out of it,
Okay.
maximize and make the most out of it.
Just to add to this question, Savio,
Right.
like, do you think there is enough opportunity? I mean, as a student, I'm really interested to know, like, would we get opportunities to explore to different roles? Like, for example, as a management training, I understand that we would get to perform different stints, but how is it in Swiggy? Like, would we get the opportunity to explore the different kind of roles that we're interested in?
Yeah, most certainly. So all of these roles that I described are starting level roles where any of you can directly be recruited by specialists in that field. Like you may have an IMRB, you may have a Nielsen that takes you directly into research. You could have large agencies or even niche agencies. I don't want to take names, but of course the creative agencies that can, directly recruit you into being part of their creative strategy team. You could have larger corporates, like you just referred to, and I do know, having been part of the ITC setup, that there is a 1-year management training program. Most FMCG companies have. And then you do have ways in which you can voice your interest, in which you can excel. And you could look into roles that are either sales centric or category centric or brand centric. So the simple answer to your question, Payal, is yes. All of these roles are open to fresh graduates out of a marketing MBA course. And it's something that you should definitely explore. Of course, looking into areas that really interest you.
All right, sure. Thank you.
Yeah, Savio, I have another question. So
Yes.
you talked about that you worked in the cigarette section for ITC as well, and then currently you're in Swiggy. So I just wanted to know, so the objectives for, so how is it different working for both of these companies? One is a new age brand like Swiggy, and one is an old timer in the field. So the objectives are obviously different. For ITC, it will be more about getting brand loyalty, and for Swiggy, it will be more about market penetration. So how are the new age brands different from the old timers when it comes to marketing with the introduction of new channels and everything?
Got it. So I'll begin my answer by just addressing your question. I think the fundamentals of market penetration never ever cease. Okay, so whether you're an ITC, whether you're a brand that has existed for 20 years, or whether you're a brand that has come into play today, you will always, as a marketing professional, need to look into market that user benefit.
Correct.
Yeah. So, okay. But I do get the essence of your question. Of course, a brand's, there would be different ways in which it's done. There would be different channels, different life stages of the product. Correct. And I think that's mainly what you were trying to imply.
Right. Yeah.
So yes. So fair example. Let's look into it. So when you, uh, I'd refer to my stint in ITC, which is more as being brand manager of Classmate, right, which is the stationery brand.
Okay.
Okay, so Classmate has 4 different verticals, right? There are notebooks, where we are India's number 1, and then you have geometry boxes, where we are a very close number 2, right? Immediately after Camlin. Uh, Camlin, I'm sure you've used it during your school time, and maybe even earlier than that, it's been in existence, and the Classmate geometry boxes have been recently introduced, and they are really growing market share.
Correct. Yeah.
Right. So again, like my very first question, a great brand is something that has it's a great product. It needs to be a great product, right? And I'm sure you would have noticed with the books or with the geometry boxes it is, as with, let's even include Swiggy into the discussion. So with the app, right? It's a fantastic app, and that's why it has that amount of a user base that is using it. It genuinely lends itself to user convenience.
Okay.
Pricing has to be competitive. So with the notebooks, it is of course competitive. Maybe the Classmate notebooks are a notch above competition. But like I said, there has to be consumer derived value, and that is what consumers see in it. The geometry boxes are priced on par with competition. And Wiki, of course, offers you services, which is again on par with competition.
Okay.
Right? Now, distribution, it is accessible. So notebooks accessible, geometry boxes accessible, Swiggy, the app accessible.
Okay.
Now, promotion, that's again where I come in. And this is your most important lever, the lever that you will build that emotional connect. So let's look at each of the examples.
Okay.
Classmate notebooks, tier 1, tier 2. Today, what is the problem statement? The problem statement is, how do we penetrate even further? How do I get users who currently are not or are buying, say, local brands to upgrade to a Classmate product? And therefore, it's all about quality. It's all about sophistication. It's all about an aspirational product, the best notebook that ever exists. And that is the communication that Classmate has been following to get consumers to pay a little bit more and upgrade to the best quality notebook that there is.
Okay.
Okay, again, large masses need to be addressed, and therefore Classmate, as you will see, does use conventional channels like the television. Okay, so TV advertisement.
Yeah.
Also certain other niches, like it wants to address the college target, the college age group, the students going to colleges. It wants to be seen as a brand that that the youth identify with through new age notebooks that it's introducing, and therefore it also uses very targeted digital ads as well.
Okay.
Okay, the geometry boxes. Now again, mass, and then it writes on the notebooks and says it tries to communicate along with the notebooks through flyers, through inserts in the notebooks, through retail advertisement, talking all about quality, talking all about being a better product, a new age product, where consumers would like to now be seen with this stylish, better product than something that has been going around for generations.
Okay.
Okay, now Swiggy. Swiggy, as you guys know, is trying to create or broaden its user base across tier 2, and therefore it's focusing on channels using occasions that are more towards those audiences. Today in the COVID scenario, one of the largest roadblocks that food delivery hit was all about the entire question mark of whether food delivery is safe, correct? And therefore, if you see today's communication or the way they are trying to increase penetration / frequency of ordering is all about using that very, very powerful communication lever, which is a crore people have already ordered. So many people have already ordered. So if you can see it, it's not directly telling the consumer that in as clear words as saying food delivery is safe, but it's hitting that emotional chord, which is to say your neighbor has ordered, the third person has ordered, everybody around you is ordering, it is safe, right? People are doing fine. Why don't you as well get back to how do each of these brands function? The broad objective of user penetration always stays the same. It's about what specific objective each of them is trying to drive, or what market share problem they're trying to address. And that is how your 40 or promotion / communication will address. Is that fine?
So Savio,
Yes.
you talked about for the stationary products of ITC that they used conventional methods like television. So I saw in a report that the major for ITC is the cigarette division, where you can't directly market using the conventional method. So how do they go about their positioning for the cigarettes division?
I think a very interesting question. I've been part of the cigarettes division for a good 3 years.
Okay.
And it was one of my most challenging but enjoyable stints that I've had in my career.
Okay.
Okay, and the very fact that it is non-conventional, right? You can't use any of the conventional forms of media, and you have the entire legal angle to comply with, right? And ITC being the company that it is and the best brand that it is, was going to always ensure that it is doubly sure what it is doing from a legal point of view. Okay? Right.
Okay.
It's again another challenge that add to your questions. When I moved into that role, you did have cigarettes that were becoming fairly innovative, correct? So you had it's no more just a cylinder of tobacco and a filter, correct? You had a capsule, you had low smoke, you had a fair bit of innovation that was happening.
Okay.
The prices were of that level, and therefore you had to inform the consumer that this is the innovation that's happening in the category. Therefore, he sees sufficient CDV, like I said, consumer derived value for him to pay that
Okay.
additional amount, that product, because that product did have certain value add, correct? Whether it was in flavors, whether it was in technology, whether it was low smoke filters.
Correct.
And again, so you look into unpermissible avenues of communication to a smoker, correct? So you can only communicate to smokers, and you can only communicate at the point of sale.
Okay.
Okay, so if you also now just understand the statement I made, you will see all cigarette communication only restricted to the kirana outlet, to the place where you can or you have access to purchase a cigarette, whether it is at a restaurant, whether it is at a kirana outlet, etc. And therefore, all communication, all engagement is focused only in those permissible areas in legally permissible ways that you can. So you do make ads and you do have ads running on TV, except that those TVs are not your normal media channels, right? Those TVs are the TVs that are within the kirana outlet selling the cigarette.
Correct.
Yeah. So you do have to be
Right.
really cognizant and aware of the legal permissible, what is permissible. And like I said, a role is what you make of it. There is more than enough space for you to do a great job within those boundaries in the right way as well.
Okay. Got it. Yeah.
I have one question to you, Savio. So now, what do you think would be the most important characteristic that we should hone to become a successful marketers?
Interesting question. So let me start with you, Payal. What do you think it is? I'd like to hear from each of you guys. What do you think tomorrow when you become marketeers, heading brands, heading verticals? What do you think is that one simple characteristic that you think is going to stand by you and be your most important, lead?
So I think that putting yourself in the customer's shoes, and being a very customer-centric approach will always help. Is what I feel is the most important characteristic, that you put your customer first and then move backwards that way.
Yeah,
Very
definitely. I believe this.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely concur with what Tejas has to say. So, customer is the king. If we take this a metric as as a center point, as a focal point, and if we then go back and reverse engineer to what we can do as to if we were the customers. So, I believe that is something that will be really really helpful for us to start something, keeping the customer's endpoint into frame.
Yeah. I love your answers. Completely correct as well, right? All three of you. And I'll give you an example, right? Today, when you get into large organizations, when you get into brands, it's very, very easy to follow the practices that have already been set. Okay? It's very easy, right? It has been done last year. I'll do it again this year. This is what we did for New Year. Let's do it again. We didn't do anything for Diwali, so we will not do anything again. We as a product only launch these kind of products, and therefore we will not launch anything outside of this. And therefore I will build on. So what you are saying is perfect, right? You need to keep the consumer as the focal point, to understand the consumer needs. And as marketeers, you need to keep your eyes and ears open. Just be observant of every single thing that happens. Okay? And I'll try to go a little deeper. Right? Each of you, I'm sure, comes from a certain town, be it a tier 1 town, a metro, etc. You would be used to the practices happening in your family, within your friend circle. Right? As you grow into marketeers, try understanding and observing people, products, places around you. Okay. So I am from Mumbai, been born and brought up there, and then as part of the ITC journey, I of course lived in Jaipur, in Bhopal, then Calcutta, then Chennai, and each place I went, I saw just a very different community of people, very different beliefs, very different interests. Excuse me. I saw very different fundamentals at play in the market right now. From a marketing point of view, you see different traditions, you see different you see languages, you see different styles of talking. You will see that within your batchmates, in your batch, you will see different forms of interacting with products, right? Whether it is the Marwadi, whether it is the Tamilian, whether it is the Bengali, whether it is the Punjabi. And I'm saying, start imbibing that, start understanding that. It may appeal to you, it may not appeal to you. You may not be part of that TT, but I'm saying you need to be cognizant of that. Start observing advertisement, understand what products are doing, understand, like we just said, which brands have a strong point of view, which brand is only playing itself on discounting and just runs discounts and is happy with that, which brand is trying to establish itself as an aspirational product without discounting. And the more you understand that, what brands are at play in tier 2 towns, what brands are appealing to a certain section of the population. We again just spoke about user penetration. Which brand is doing what to go into tier 2? Which brand is doing what to go into the higher echelons of society? Right? And I'm saying, keep your eyes and ears open. Keep observing that as you read books, as you look into advertisement, as you just look into people's society around you. Tomorrow, when you become marketeers, while you will look at consumer data, while you will look at market research reports, the most important power or the most important ability that you will need is your gut and your ability to take decision.
Yeah.
And that strong sense of what is the right thing to be done. How do I position my product to really address the TG that I want to? That doesn't come overnight. That is the skill that you need to hone starting today or maybe even yesterday, right? You need to keep observing people, understand market dynamics,
Right.
what's happening, and only then will you be able to track all the data around you. Otherwise, data will dance the way you want it to, right? You can make it look into any different form, any shape and form.
Correct.
You will need to be that guy at the decisioning table that
Agree.
says, this is how I want my fourth P. My promotion will convey this. I will run a discount or I will not. I will communicate in this form or I will raise my brand and make it stand in this manner. And that is what, and not just because you want it, it's because that is what the TG that the brand is addressing want.
Correct. Right. That is amazing, Savio, really. So I think we have now got a very good gist of, how the industry works and how to go about it, how to make choices, how to see it from a very broad lens. So there is just one last question that we all would want to know, which is what are the most likely problems or scenarios that we as a future marketeers are, bound to encounter while we take everyday decisions or choices in the company?
Yeah, a nice question. And certain things that just top of my mind, I will share that with you, right? So,
Okay.
as part of my marketing role at Piggy and part of designing our private brands, and any powerful brand, you as marketeers would always want to customize your product to the best way possible to the consumer, correct? So
Correct.
as food brands, I would want to know every single person's preferences and design my dish exactly to suit that person. So I would want to know whether Tejas likes his food spicy. I'd like to know if Payal likes it more cheesy. And I'd like my food offering to be exactly customized as per your preferences. And every brand wants to do that. The problem that you will encounter is standardization, right? So customization versus standardization, because I'm sure the guy in your hostel in the next room, right, who's is part of the operations batch, his KRA when he joins the same organization is all about how do I improve manufacturing capabilities, how do I improve my throughput, correct, and how do I roll out more products from the assembly line. And this is going to be a trade-off that
Right.
you are constantly going to need to grapple with as you become marketing professionals. How does my product become even more customized, where at the same time, the larger or there are other organizational objectives also which would focus on standardization and increasing throughput. Correct? Therefore, look at the FMCG industry around you. You will see that most of the products are heavily standardized because that's the scale of at which they produce. Right? You would have some limited edition items, but again, so you have a Lay's packet that has 5 different kinds of smiles. You'll have another product that does some level bit of customization, but it's just a limited edition product, and it is at a very, very limited scale. Service industry, of course, does a lot more customization. Today, me being part of the food industry,
Right.
we try to customize as much as possible, but again, we also need to meet certain we are faced with certain operational constraints. And I'm saying that is always going to be a battle with that you will face. And that is how much do I customize so that my consumer feels loved. My brand turns into a love mark and not just a standard product. But at the same time, how much does operational feasibility allow me to stretch in that direction? Okay, that's one point. Are you guys
Alright.
able to relate to it?
Much.
Yes,
Very
yes,
much.
absolutely.
Yes,
The other
yes.
one
Yeah.
that I have is, again, very commonly seen is how much do I reward the consumer versus what is effective, correct? So when you become sales managers, brand managers, you have to constantly ask the question, the same question we encountered, right? How do I increase penetration? And therefore, you're going to say, hey, can I run cashbacks? Hey, can I run discount vouchers? Hey, can I run a freebie? Hey, can I run discounting? Correct? And you will constantly have to keep a tab on what is your consumer really excited with? What does it really matter to the consumer and how effective is it, right? So you don't want to run something which is just going to drain your resources and not result in an effective output. Correct? being part of marketing,
Correct.
being marketing professionals, you need to understand what are my marketing spends and keep a very, very close tab on understanding whether they are effective and whether there is sufficient return on those investments, or whether it is just something that you are, putting down the drain without any impact, and the consumer is enjoying it, but he doesn't really care about it. Another point that really comes to my mind is, and I think it's
Okay.
again something that you guys should be able to relate to, is the entire factor today of brands grappling with information overkill and consumer experience. Right? So me on the app, when I launch a new dish, I want to describe it in 5 paragraphs, right? I want to talk about how it's indulgent. I want to talk about the great ingredients that went into it. I want to talk about the spices that are from very specific areas. But I need to be cognizant that the consumer just has 2 minutes of time to order that dish. Correct? And he doesn't, what
Yeah.
he cares about is convenience in ordering and how can he best navigate through the app. I look at a lot of automobile ads, correct? And they have these fancy terms, A, B, C, D, F, X, Y, Z, all of it. And either the guy then has spent 2 paragraphs explaining what that technology is, or he has just left it with and told the consumer, you break your head and figure out what this means. And neither of them lend itself to great consumer experience. And therefore today, as technology gets even more advanced,
Right.
as you try to make your products more innovative, you will come across these abbreviations, these terms, these new age terms, and you would want to communicate to the consumer in the best way possible, but keeping consumer experience paramount. So you may want to put it as 2 bullet points, 3 bullet points. You may want to understand this is where your marketing fundamentals of factor analysis will come in, to really understand what the consumer cares about, right? There's no point creating a flyer or a pamphlet like a newspaper where the consumer has not understood a single word. I'd rather have 3 bullet points wherein he really understands what the USP of the product is. And that should be powerful enough for him to purchase the product. So certain things that were top of mind that I think I as a professional and you guys very soon will be grappling with, and would have to take those decisions that we just spoke about in the earlier question, those gut feel decisions about I know for certain this is what my
Right. Okay. That was really insightful, Savio. Thank you so much for inspiring us today, sharing with us your knowledge, and it was really fun. We had a lot of fun,
it
and
was
I hope you
fantastic.
did too.
I loved talking
Thank
to
you
you
so
guys.
much
I
for
just hope
your
that
time.
you guys had a good time.